Hello, my name is Tanner, and in this presentation we will be discussing speech and language impairments. Before we begin this lesson, I strongly recommend checking out this short video by Teachings in Education. It gives a nice overview of the topics we will be discussing today. You will find a link for this video in the description or by clicking the pop-up in the top right corner. In order to understand much of the information we will be discussing today, you must first understand what speech and language impairment is. IDEA describes speech and language impairment as a communication disorder such as stuttering, impaired articulation, language impairment, or a voice impairment that adversely affects a child's educational performance. Speech and language impairments can affect students in many ways. A major issue resulting from speech and language impairments is delayed social and emotional development. In most cases, this is because students feel isolated, unwanted, or disconnected from their classmates. This disconnect can lead to poor academic achievement, behavioral disorders, and unfair treatment from classmates. As a teacher, you should be familiar with the signs indicating a student might have a speech and language impairment. Signs that a child may have a speech and language impairment include having trouble following instructions, having issues with reading and writing, substituting and avoiding words, cannot understand others or others cannot understand them, stretches out sounds or words. It is important to keep logs of these observations so that you can present them in IEP meetings or to the child's speech-language pathologist. Now that we understand the signs of speech and language impairments, we can compare speech versus language. In a whole, speech is how we say sounds and words. Speech has three key traits: articulation, voice, and fluency. Articulation is producing speech sounds clearly and accurately. The tongue twister, she sells seashells down by the seashore, is an example of how similar sounds can be hard to articulate. Voice describes the vocal qualities, pitch, or loudness that affect how a person's voice sounds. I can make my voice high-pitched, like this, or I can make my voice low, like this. Those are all aspects of voice. Lastly, we have fluency, which is the flow and rhythm of speech. My speech can be smooth, or it can be jagged and harsh. I can talk fast, or I can slow down and process my words. This describes the fluency of my speech. Together, these three traits describe speech. Language, on the other hand, is different. Language is the words we use and how they relate to ideas, culture, and the things we want. Language has meaning and grammar and context. In a way, speech is the physical act of producing sounds that make up a language. Language is the way we use those sounds to present ideas in a way that gives them context. Let's now transition to the professionals related to speech and language impairments. Speech-language pathologists are a student's primary help when it comes to dealing with their speech and language impairment. Speech and language pathologists assess, diagnose, and treat communication and swallowing disorders. A large portion of their work is focused on building muscles to help with articulation. Other key professionals are audiologists, physicians, neurologists, occupational and physical therapists, and teachers. As a teacher, it is important that you observe and log information that can help your student's speech-language pathologist develop a learning plan that can be used in the IEP. There are 9 different areas of correction that SLPs focus on: speech and sound disorders, receptive and expressive language, fluency, voice and resonance, auditory habilitation, feeding and swallowing, cognitive aspects of communication, social aspects of communication, augmentative and alternative communication. The following definitions are from Maddie Mark's article, The 9 Areas of Speech-Language Pathology. With speech sound disorders, Students likely have difficulties producing speech sounds correctly, clearly, or in an age-appropriate way. With receptive and expressive language, students have a hard time understanding language or using words, sentences, or grammar. If a child has trouble with fluency, they may stutter or clutter words together. Voice and resonance focuses on vocal quality, pitch, and loudness. Auditory habilitation focuses on children with hearing loss and helps them develop spoken and listening language skills. Feeding and swallowing helps children develop feeding and swallowing skills. Cognitive aspects of communication focuses on problems with attention, memory, reasoning, or executive functions that can affect communication. Social aspects of communication focuses on interpreting social cues and conversation rules. Augmentative and alternative communication are tools and strategies that an SLP can use to help replace spoken communication for individuals. Speech, language, and IEP/504 plans. Creating an IEP for a student with a speech and language impairment can be difficult. Related services depend on the nature of the student's disability. Because speech and language are combined, there are many variations in which students receive services and how they receive services. In all states, students whose primary disability is related to language can be covered by an IEP plan. Some students can receive IEP plans for speech only, while some only receive services if they have another disability under IDEA. Some students may not need an IEP at all and work with SLPs outside of school hours. It is important for teachers to understand what resources they have available to them so that they can help students with speech and language impairments. In this day and age, one resource teachers can use to communicate with students is technology. Devices like computers, phones, and laptops can help students communicate effectively. They can also use these devices to practice the skills they are learning. One useful feature of technology is text-to-speech. Text-to-speech allows students to type phrases and hear them out loud. This allows them to get experience hearing phrases that may be difficult for them to process. Another resource for teachers is using augmentative and alternative communication devices. If you do not remember, these are tools or strategies that support or replace spoken communication for individuals with significant communication needs. They are assigned by a speech-language pathologist and can be used at home or in the classroom. Visual aids are another important resource that teachers can use to help students with speech and language impairments. Examples of visual aids include using pictures and slideshows or providing captions for videos and images. Students with speech and language impairments may have difficulty hearing. By using visual aids, you can help these students feel engaged and part of a class because they are able to understand what you are presenting up front. While using visual aids, it's also important to talk slowly and repeat instructions. Pairing these two together can help keep students with speech-language impairments engaged. It's important to remember that when working with students with speech-language impairments, that you use simplified language that they can easily understand. Each student with speech-language impairments may be at a different level. It's important to use language that reflects that level when interacting with them. Another resource that teachers can use is structured communication techniques. These techniques can include sentence starters, word prompts, and helper words, and should be used in class discussions to help students with speech and language impairments participate in conversations. As a teacher, you should always collaborate with the student's speech-language pathologist in order to figure out what the plan of action is. It is also important to be patient. Sometimes it can take years for students to develop the appropriate level of communication necessary in the class they are in. I have 3 main takeaways from this lesson. The first is collaboration between speech-language pathologists, teachers, and parents. It is very important that those 3 parties are communicating the needs of the child. If you take one of those groups out of the equation, then the student will not get the proper help they need at home, at school, or out and about in the world. Our second takeaway is the difference between speech and language. Like we said earlier in this lesson, speech is the physical act of producing sounds that make up a language, and language is the way we use those sounds to present ideas in a way that gives them context. And our last takeaway is change will take time. You can't fix a speech language impairment in a year. It can take a lot more time. Your goal is to hook up your child with a speech language pathologist as soon as possible. The sooner you get them help, the sooner they can hopefully fix their impairment. Sometimes that impairment will never go away and you're just working on strategies to help the child get around that impairment. So it's important to remember those things when working with a student with a speech language impairment. I hope you learned something from this lesson. Thank you so much for watching till the end, and here's my sources.